A community in mourning and demanding answers.
And we just want to know what happened to Nolan.
After the mysterious death of Mississippi teenager Nolan Wells following a boat trip with friends to Horn Island on the 4th of July. His mother contacted authorities late that night when he didn't come home.
Police report her 18-year-old son, Nolan Wells, missing last seen at 3 on Horn Island.
Christine Wells-Wansley told us she got a call Saturday night from one of the friends Nolan went to the island with.
What did he say?
He said, "Hey, Miss Christine, have you seen Nolan or talked to Nolan?" I said, "No, I thought he was with you guys, you know." He's like, "No, nobody's talked to him."
Early the next morning, Nolan's father, Elmore, says his son's high school football coach took him out on a boat to search.
Got off the boat, walked the island, and then got back on the boat and went around the island.
Did you see anything?
Nothing.
No.
The Coast Guard and United Cajun Navy searching simultaneously, but it was a day later when Nolan's body was recovered.
There's basically a black hole between about 4:30 on the 4th of July in the afternoon until when Nolan was found.
Authorities have not released a cause of death.
Do you think there's a possibility that your son drowned accidentally?
Honestly, because of the way the stories are just so inconsistent and how that day went, it's just, we can't say for sure.
His grieving parents believe race may have been a factor in his death.
I don't want to believe it is, but unfortunately, there's evidence to show that things like this happen. He just had a big heart. To really know Nolan, to have him as your friend it was something special.
Do you worry that he might have trusted too much?
Sometimes, yeah. And that was something we always talked to him about.
The engine barely makes a sound, a crawl. Something closer to a hearse than a rescue. Gliding across dark water at the pace of a man walking his dog. While somewhere behind it, on an island no one can reach without a boat of their own, a mother's phone is about to ring for the last time that night, with an answer she doesn't want. Nobody on that water is panicking. That's the part that should bother you. By the time anyone official writes anything down, the story has already split into two versions of the same afternoon. One version has everybody laughing, safe, headed home from a holiday on the water. The other has a body that will wash up 2 days later, with a mark on the back of its skull that no doctor, independent or official, has been able to explain. His name was Nolan Wells. And nearly a month later, the people who were with him on that island still can't agree on the order of events. The official record still won't name a cause of death, and a piece of audio nobody was supposed to comb through this closely has just cracked the timeline wide open. We're not giving you the whole picture yet. Not because we're holding back for drama, but because the details only make sense once you understand exactly how far apart these two stories really are. And once you hear it, you'll understand why his family is still standing outside a courthouse instead of getting to grieve in peace. Welcome back to The Crime Executioner. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe. We're not done with this one. Let's get into it. The call came in through a private towing service, not through 911. A young male voice told the dispatcher the boat was taking on water near Horn Island and that they were sinking. He said it more than once, using the word now, the kind of language meant to signal urgency. The dispatcher walked him through the standard questions. Membership number, location, how many people on board. He couldn't confirm a membership number of his own, but gave a name tied to the account, then corrected himself, then gave a name again. He estimated 7 people on the boat. When asked directly if the Coast Guard was needed, he said no. He gave GPS coordinates that placed the vessel just off Horn Island. The call was transferred to a local captain, who noted the caller sounded like a kid, panicked, unable to give full details, but insistent that the boat needed to be pumped out and towed back to the mainland. That call is now one of the most scrutinized pieces of evidence in the entire case, because of what came after it. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources later pulled the boat's own GPS plotter data, the built-in tracking log that records a vessel's position and speed automatically, with no possibility of being altered after the fact by anyone on board. That data covers the exact window during which the distress call was placed. According to the plotter log, between 4:31 and 5:24 that afternoon, the boat moved a total of 2.7 miles. Its speed during that window never exceeded 4.2 knots. For much of it, the boat was moving at roughly the pace of a person walking. A boat that is actually sinking does not behave this way. Taking on water creates urgency, a race toward the nearest dock, the nearest help, the nearest solid ground. The data shows the opposite. Nearly an hour of slow, unhurried movement, followed by a sudden increase in speed to over 30 knots, heading straight for a dock. This is not interpretation. This is what the vessel's own instruments recorded, later extracted, converted into a readable file, and laid directly over satellite imagery by marine resources investigators. Two accounts exist from the exact same stretch of water and time. One is a phone call describing an emergency in progress. The other is a machine with no motive, recording exactly how fast that boat was actually moving. This is a video of Nolan Wells' friends on the sinking boat.
Vicky speaking. How can I help you? Hello, sir.
Hello. Okay.
How many adults on board?
There are 0 adults on board.
There's nobody on board the boat?
No. Nobody
right.
here is over the age of 21.
Sir, that was not the question. Is there a person? Is there a person, a living individual on the boat?
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership.
All right, of course. How far is the water coming up, sir? Can you give me a description? Ankles?
What'd
Hello?
you say? Hey.
Yes. How far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down now.
All right. Well, let's get you going. Membership number or phone number listed on the account, sir.
I don't know the phone number. It's either Jerry Atkerson. I think it's Jerry Atkerson. Try that.
All right.
I know we have a membership, like guaranteed. I don't
All
have
right.
the tag
Unless
on
you
here.
have a membership number or anything, it's okay. I'll get you over to the captain. What's the best phone number to reach you at?
Reach me at 2.
All right. And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's
How
on
many?
board.
All right. Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
What?
Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
No, we do not need that.
All right. All right. Do you have your current GPS coordinates?
Let me go look.
If not, I can send you a text message.
North. All right, are you ready?
Yes, sir. I'm available.
North 30 degrees by 4672.
All right. 4672. All right. And you were breaking up a little bit. Can you just repeat it one more time to make sure I have it correct?
Sorry, look.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, what?
So you're breaking up. If you need assistance, do you have a VHF radio?
No, we do not have the VHF radio.
All right. Well, let's try to get you going because you don't have good cell phone reception. Can you verify your coordinates one more time?
Okay, my coordinates are 30 degrees by 14.684 north, and then west by 88 degrees by 46.79.
Right. Looks like you're on Horn Island, correct? Are you
yes,
on
we are
Horn
at Horn
Island?
Island. Yes.
All right. Is the boat sinking or you have it aground?
We are sinking, yes.
Is it aground is the question?
No, we're not aground. We are in
Okay.
17 foot of water. We're in 31 foot of water.
All right. Have to ask. What do you want to do? Do you want to be towed back?
I want to get this boat unsank and towed back, yes.
All right. Where would you like it towed to, sir?
You can tow it to Ocean Springs Harbor, or Fort Bayou launch.
All right. How many adults and children on board?
No, there's no children.
So is there anybody on board? How many adults, sir? That was the question. Hello, can you hear me?
Gotta jump in and pull the plug, Bart, while you're going.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yep, I just need you to answer these questions so I can get you over to the captain.
Okay.
How many
what's
adults
going
on board?
There are 0 adults on board.
There's nobody on board the boat?
No. Nobody
right.
here is over the age of 21.
Sir, that was not the question. Is there a person? Is there a person, a living individual on the boat?
Hello?
Is there a living person, someone breathing on the boat? Is there anybody on the boat?
Yes, there's lots of people breathing on the boat.
All right, how many people, sir?
Like 7.
All right, thank you. Does everyone have life jackets on or available to them?
Yes, we have life jackets available.
All right, verify what boat's sinking.
A Triton, 22-foot offshore, 22-foot Triton offshore sea flight hull.
All right. All right. Please hold. I'm transferring you to the local captain now.
Okay, thank you.
This is Captain Seth.
Hi, Captain Seth. This is Vicky from International. How you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, good. I apologize ahead of time. I really do. You're going to have a fee-for-service come up under Jerry.
Okay.
It sounds like a bunch of kids on board on Horn Island. He's letting me know that his father's a member, but he can't give me any information. And he's saying the boat is sinking, and he's on Horn Island. It's just unfortunate. He's just a kid. There's a lot going on. So
Right.
he said there's about a lot of people on board. He says he thinks about 7. I'm guessing they're all under 18.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be rude. He wants you guys to go out there and unpump the boat and then tow it in.
Do you know what kind of boat it is?
He said a Triton 24-footer, but that's all he can give me.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just actually got off the phone with his grandpa, who I'm guessing is the owner of the boat, and
Is it
he
Jerry?
said that Jerry. Yeah, he said.
Okay.
I just hung up with him. He said that they don't need any help right now, but if something changes, he'll call me back. So
All right.
I'm guessing that they may have figured it out, because that's what he said. So they're in a panic and their boat won't crank.
Yeah, they're in a panic. He's saying the
So-
bilge is not keeping up. I asked for Coast Guard. He said no, but he's just really upset on the back end. And, I get it. It's a
Okay.
kid. He just doesn't understand.
Oh, okay. Do you still have him on the line?
Yes, I still have him on the line. And, again, I couldn't find he couldn't give me anything regarding his grandfather's, membership, so it's just under Jerry fee-for-service.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just talked to. If you want to, we're so tied up right now. We can't really do any non-member jobs right now.
Is Jerry a member? Did you find out if he was a member or not?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's his boat or what. I'm not sure what's going on with it. But yeah, transfer the kid over. I'll talk to him, and then I'll call his grandpa back as well.
All right. And did you want me to look up Jerry's membership number or anything like that to see if he's up? I know you guys are
You can
swamped.
try this cell phone number.
Yes, sir.
Anything on this phone number?
All right. Yep. Jerry. Yeah, he's an active member. Hold on.
What kind of boat do you have on there? Same boat?
Yeah, he's one of your members. Yep, 22-foot Triton. All right. I'll just disregard this one. I'm gonna send you over an accurate one under this Jerry Ackerson one. Okay, he's one of your members. You'll get it in a couple minutes. Okay.
Okay, perfect. All right, and yeah, just transfer this kid over whenever you get a chance.
All right, transferring now. Thank you again, Captain.
All righty.
Stay safe out there. It's crazy. Have a drink.
Oh, it's wild.
They do not agree with each other. 2 days pass between the distress call and the moment anyone found him. On the morning of July 6th, a National Park Service ranger was patrolling the shoreline near the northwestern tip of Horn Island. That's where he came across a body in the water, face down, close to the edge of the island. It was Nolan Wells. Word reached the family before most details did. For 2 days they had waited without answers, hoping the search would end differently. Instead, It ended with a ranger's routine patrol turning into a recovery. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind examined the body shortly after it was pulled from the water. On record, he stated there were no immediate signs of physical injury. No obvious wounds, no visible trauma consistent with a violent act, nothing that pointed investigators toward an easy conclusion in either direction. At that stage, all anyone official had to go on was a body recovered from shallow water near an island with no shelter, no facilities, and no cell service beyond a narrow margin near its edges. A young man who had been alive and accounted for on July 4th was now gone, and the location where he was found offered no clear story of how he got there. The how would come later. On July 6th, there was only the fact of his body, and a family being told their son had been found. That same day, Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter gave a short statement to the press. He said his detectives were speaking with people who had direct contact with Nolan on the day he went missing. Then he added a single line that would follow this case for weeks afterward. No foul play was suspected. He didn't explain what that judgment was based on. No timeline, no evidence, no reasoning offered alongside it. Just the sentence itself, delivered in the earliest hours of an investigation that had barely begun. For a family with more questions than answers, and a public already watching closely, that line did not land as reassurance. It landed as a conclusion, one that seemed to arrive before the facts had been gathered to support it. A crisis communications expert later reviewed the statement for CNN and offered a more precise version of what should have been said. Not that foul play was ruled out, but that there were no immediate, obvious signs of it. A small difference in wording. A significant difference in what it told the public to believe. The day after his body was found, the state medical examiner conducted an official autopsy. That was July 7th, one day after Nolan was recovered from the water off Horn Island. Under normal procedure, results like these are released once complete, along with a stated cause and manner of death. That didn't happen here. Weeks passed. The state's findings remained sealed, unreleased to the family, unreleased to the public, held back pending toxicology results that take time to process in any case involving a body recovered from water. For the Wells family, that silence became its own kind of burden. An official process was underway, but it offered them nothing to hold on to. No cause, no manner, no timeline for when either might arrive. So they made a decision available to any family in their position. They commissioned a second, independent autopsy of their own. That examination was carried out by Dr. Roger Mitchell, a forensic pathologist and president of the National Medical Association. The cost of the procedure was covered through Colin Kaepernick's Know Your Rights Camp initiative, which has funded independent autopsies in other closely watched cases. The family's attorney, Ben Crump, announced the preliminary findings publicly, standing beside Nolan's parents. The conclusion was almost identical to what the state's silence had already implied. Cause of death, undetermined. Manner of death, undetermined. Neither autopsy, official or independent, found lacerations, fractures, or deep tissue injuries on Nolan's body. No visible sign of a physical assault. No clear mark pointing toward how he ended up in the water in the first place. Mitchell's report noted one limitation directly. The toxicology results, the test that would show whether any substance was present in Nolan's system at the time of his death, had not yet come back when the preliminary findings were released. Without that information, a significant piece of the picture remained missing. Toxicology can indicate whether someone was impaired in a way that might explain how they ended up unable to get themselves out of the water, and if so, whether that impairment was voluntary or something else entirely. So here is where both autopsies left this case. Two separate medical examinations, conducted independently of each other, using two different sets of hands and two different sets of equipment, arrived at the same unresolved place. No obvious trauma, no determined cause, no determined manner. Two doctors, two reports, and still no answer to the only question that actually matters. What happened to Nolan Wells between the moment he was last seen alive and the moment his body was recovered from the water remains, medically speaking, exactly as uncertain as it was the day he was found. Warren Hudson was one of the people on that boat, and he has spoken publicly about that day more than once. Each time he has said something new. In his first public interview, he introduced himself as Nolan's friend. He said their friendship went back to the 8th grade. Years of history between them. He described Nolan as someone who seemed completely fine every time he checked on him throughout the day. No signs of distress. Nothing that suggested anything was wrong. That was the entirety of what he offered in that first sit-down. A friendship, a character reference, nothing about the boat itself, Nothing about the moments before Nolan disappeared from the group. In a second interview, he moved further into the events of that afternoon, describing the boat emergency in broader terms.
The last time I saw Nolan was 3 o'clock, and Nolan was cradling a girl in his arms, Katie. Nolan was sitting there, and the last time I saw him, I looked at Nolan, and Nolan was like shaking his head, laughing, and I was like, dude, you crazy. I was like just joking with him. And but anyway, Nolan, that was the last time I laid eyes on him. But when we were leaving, obviously, no one is getting left at the island that came with us unless they demanded to, be there and asked, this is a very common thing at Horn Island. When you're out there, a lot of people ride out there with someone and in with somebody else all the time. I've done that 100 times. It's a very common thing, but Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl, and my buddy yelled for Nolan, get on the boat. We're leaving. The boat's having issues. And no, he didn't say that, but he was panicking. Nolan, get the F on the boat. Get on the boat. And Nolan said, no, I'm staying out here. I'm going to ride in with somebody else. And it's not uncommon to hear, but it's not like my buddy asked him one time. My buddy asked Nolan multiple times to get on the boat. Nolan, get on the boat. Get on the boat. We're leaving. If you're coming, you got to come now. And Nolan made a decision to stay out on the island.
And I heard the girl that he was with, Katie, had text somebody that she heard people yelling
correct
for Nolan to get on. Is that true?
And I have a picture of that. She texted my buddy, and the next day everybody was panicking and everybody's texting Katie, because she was obviously seen with Nolan the whole day at the island. Katie sent a message to my buddy the next day and said, this is the last time I saw him, he's really sweet. But she also mentioned that the last time she saw Nolan was when my buddy was yelling at him to get on the boat. And she was right there to see that Nolan decided not to.
Still, the most critical window, the stretch of time right before the boat left Horn Island without Nolan on it, remained largely unaddressed. It wasn't until a third interview, this time with podcast host Brandon Tatum, that Hudson offered an explanation for that specific gap. He said that at the exact moment Nolan went missing from the group, someone ran up to tell him his younger brother had gotten into a fight elsewhere on the island. His attention, he said, split in that moment. That was why, according to Hudson, he couldn't account for what happened to Nolan in those final minutes before the boat departed. 3 interviews. 3 different stages of the same story. An introduction and a character reference first. A general account of the emergency second. And only in the third, after 2 rounds of public questioning had already passed, an actual explanation for the one gap that mattered most. None of this proves what Hudson did or didn't know. People recalling a chaotic, high-stress day don't always produce a complete account on the first attempt, and memory under pressure doesn't always arrive in order. That is a fair possibility, and it deserves to be stated as one. But it is also fair to note what the public record actually shows. A key detail, arguably the single most important detail in the entire case, surfaced only in Hudson's third interview, after 2 previous opportunities had already passed without him mentioning it. Whether that reflects the ordinary imperfection of memory, or something else, is not something the record itself can answer. What the record shows is simply this. The explanation came late, and it came only after the story had already been told twice without it. By the time these details reached the public, Nolan's case had already become something larger than a single missing person investigation. The photos taken that day on the boat began circulating widely. In them, Nolan stands with his arm around his friends, smiling for the camera like any other holiday outing. But something about those photos caught the attention of people far beyond Mississippi. In nearly every image, Nolan is the only black person among a group of white friends. Ocean Springs, where the Wells family lives, is a community that is roughly 79% white, according to recent census figures. That context, combined with the sheriff's early statement ruling out foul play before the investigation had truly begun, was enough to raise questions for a lot of people who were watching from a distance. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump was already representing the family by this point. Reverend Al Sharpton also stepped into the case publicly, speaking at a news conference where he addressed the tension directly. He said the circumstances did not smell right. He acknowledged that some people were accusing him of injecting race into a case where it might not belong. His response was that The case couldn't be ruled racially motivated, but it also couldn't be ruled out. Not yet, not with so much still unknown. That statement captured where a significant portion of the public landed. Not certainty in either direction, but discomfort with how quickly one direction had been dismissed. None of this proves intent or motive on the part of anyone who was on that boat. What it does show is a case that, fairly or not, has been shaped by more than physical evidence alone. Mississippi's history, a sheriff's early words, and a set of photographs all became part of a story that was still, at its core, about a young man who did not come home. As public attention grew, so did something far more dangerous than speculation. Mississippi's Department of Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tindell confirmed that the FBI had opened a separate line of investigation. This one focused not on Nolan's death directly, but on threats. Threats made against witnesses in the case. Threats made against public officials. Threats made against the Wells family itself. Speaking publicly, Tindell placed the blame squarely on the spread of false information online. Rumors, theories, and unverified claims had been circulating for weeks, and somewhere along the way, they had escalated into people making direct threats against real individuals connected to the case. Tindell was direct about how seriously that would be treated. Threatening public officials, witnesses, or a grieving family is not commentary. It is a criminal act, and one the FBI intended to pursue as such. Around the same time, District Attorney Angel Myers addressed a separate set of allegations head-on. Some had accused her office of mishandling the investigation, of overlooking witnesses, of moving too slowly, even of concealing evidence. Myers released a public statement responding directly to those claims, pushing back on the idea that the investigation was being handled improperly or with any bias. Two fronts had now opened alongside the original case itself. One, an investigation into who was threatening the people involved. The other, a district attorney defending the integrity of the process itself, in full public view, before the case had even reached a grand jury. This case is still moving, and the next development could change everything you've just heard. If you want to be here the moment the grand jury decision comes down, subscribe now and turn on notifications. This is not a case we're walking away from until there's an answer. As it stands right now, nearly 60 witnesses have been interviewed by investigators, a number that continues to grow as the case moves forward. The FBI remains involved, but only in a supporting role. Federal agents have assisted with digital evidence review, and now, separately, with the threats investigation, but the Jackson County Sheriff's Office has maintained that it is leading this case from start to finish, with federal partners stepping in only where their tools and resources add value. Once that investigation concludes, the findings will be handed to a grand jury. That is standard procedure in this county for any death classified as non-natural, and Nolan's remains exactly that: undetermined cause, undetermined manner. A file that, by law, cannot simply be closed on the word of a sheriff or a coroner alone. A grand jury will ultimately decide whether the evidence supports any criminal charges at all. No timeline has been given for when that referral will happen. No date has been set for when the state autopsy will finally be released to the public. In the meantime, Christine Wansley has taken a step of her own. She has filed with the court to be formally named administrator of her son's estate. Not a dramatic legal maneuver, not a lawsuit, simply a mother establishing her legal right to make decisions on behalf of the son she has already had to bury, while the system around her continues to withhold the one thing she actually wants: an answer. 16 days after Nolan disappeared from that boat, his family said goodbye to him. By the time of the funeral, none of the major questions had been resolved. No cause of death, no manner of death, no results from either autopsy released to the family in any final form. They buried their son without the answers most families are given before they're asked to grieve. Christine Wansley has spoken publicly about what that has done to her. She has described her own mind as, in her words, mush, an ongoing blur of emotions she says she cannot fully put into language. She has been careful to note that the weight of this hasn't fallen on her and her husband alone. Nolan's siblings are living through the same absence, the same unanswered questions, in a household that lost one of its own without ever being told why. There was no dramatic courtroom scene here, no verdict, no resolution, just a funeral, a family standing over a casket, and a set of questions that followed them out of the service exactly as unanswered as they were the day his body was found. Weeks after a 4th of July boat trip that was supposed to end like every other one before it, this is where Nolan Wells' case actually stands. No suspect has been named. No one has been charged. No official cause of death, no official manner of death exists on record. 2 separate autopsies, conducted independently of each other, arrived at the same word: undetermined. What does exist is a distress call that doesn't match a boat's own recorded movements. A sheriff's early statement that raised more questions than it settled. A witness account that changed shape 3 times before a key detail finally surfaced. And a family still waiting on a state report that has yet to see daylight. None of that is a conclusion. It's simply where the facts currently sit, and where they'll remain until a grand jury reviews everything investigators have gathered and decides what, if anything, comes next. There is no ending to deliver here, because the case itself doesn't have one yet. When that changes, this channel will be here to cover it, with the same standard applied throughout this video. What's confirmed gets reported. What isn't stays exactly that, unconfirmed, until it's not.
I just know I've lost my best friend.
This morning, a friend of Nolan Wells, who was with the 18-year-old the day he was last seen alive, is sharing what he says happened during a July 4th boat trip to an isolated barrier island off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Trayston Shepard declined to speak with us on camera because he says he and his friends are getting threatened.
There is a mark on the back of this boy's skull, 12 inches by 8, bigger than a sheet of paper. It runs across the back of his head and down into his neck. And 3 weeks after his death, no one has told his mother what put it there. Here's the part that should stop you cold. The state's medical examiner never saw it. That area was never opened. It only exists on paper because his parents refused the answer they were given, flew their son's body 1,000 miles to Washington, and paid a second pathologist to cut where the first one hadn't. And when that second doctor went looking for the rest of him, the airway, the lungs, the structures that would say whether he breathed water or never got the chance, they weren't there. He opened the body and parts of it were simply gone. He is 18. A wide receiver with a season starting in 6 weeks and a 19th birthday in August he will never reach. Roughly 60 people are later interviewed about that day. Not one of them saw him drown. His mother doesn't get a knock at the door. At 11 that night her phone rings. It's one of his friends. Safe, dry, home, telling her that her son is still out there. It takes 2 days. A park ranger finds him face down in the shallows on Monday morning. And before the autopsy is finished, before a single toxicology result exists anywhere, she is told what happened to her child. Accident. Drowning. Nothing suspicious here. 500 miles west. A second mother was handed that identical sentence about her own 18-year-old. It took 3 months to learn what actually happened. Her son surfaced once and shouted for help. 2 people watched him go under, and neither called anybody. They drove away, threw his phone into a roadside ditch, deleted every message they'd ever sent him, then went to school, went home, talked to their parents. He lay at the bottom of that lake for 4 days while they did it. As a mother, she said later, I knew something was wrong on day 1. 2 arrests came out of that case, not one for killing him, both for a phone, which leaves exactly one question standing between us and the end of this episode, because there's a phone at the center of the first case too, and as of tonight, nobody has opened it. This one's heavy, and I'm not going to soften it. 2 dead 18-year-olds, autopsy detail, an unflinching look at what people did in the hours after a kid went under. Both families are weeks into this, not years. If that's too close to home today, close the tab. Nothing on this channel is worth your peace. Welcome back to the Crime Executioner. New here? We go slow, we source it, and speculation gets called speculation. That phone I mentioned, the one nobody's opened yet, we're not letting go of it. Subscribe now, because when it opens, this is where you'll hear it first. Let's get into it. Everything we know for certain about that day begins with a boat, and the boat kept a record of itself. It left a private dock that morning at 9:56. A little over an hour later, at 11:14, it reached Horn Island, a thin strip of sand 10 miles off the Mississippi coast, reachable only if someone takes you. No roads, no shops, no lifeguards, no real cell service. Once that boat idled up to the shore, everyone aboard was cut off from the mainland. One of them was Nolan Xavier Wells, 18, from Ocean Springs, a wide receiver who'd just begun his college football career. His father would later call him not just a swimmer, but a strong swimmer. The distinction matters, and we'll come back to it. In August, he was going to turn 19. For most of the afternoon, there's nothing to report. Young people on a beach on the 4th of July, the hours passing the way they pass. Then the timeline tightens. Around 3 o'clock, one of the friends sees Nolan for what he'll later say was the last time. We know this because that friend's mother is a chancery judge in the county, Ashley Cole, and she's spoken about what her son told her. 3 o'clock. After that, the accounts thin out. Because an hour later, around 4, something goes wrong with the boat. The operator calls a private towing company, a call later obtained by NBC News through a public records request. On it, he reports a bilge pump failure, the pump that keeps water out of the hull. They're at the west tip of the island, around 7 people aboard, and the words he uses aren't the words of a minor problem. He says they're sinking. Help comes. The vessel is towed roughly 3 miles before it regains power, then finishes the journey its GPS logged the whole time, into Fort Bayou at 5:52, back to the dock at 6:06. Read that sequence back, and one thing should jump out. The boat came home. The people on it came home. Nolan did not. The distress call does something important, and it would be dishonest not to say so. It backs up part of what the friends have said. There really was a problem with the boat. It really was taking on water. Anyone claiming the whole story is invented has to explain away a recording made in real time. But corroborating part of a story isn't the same as explaining it. That call tells us the boat was in trouble. It doesn't tell us why no one turned around for the 18-year-old who wasn't on it. It doesn't tell us where Nolan was at 4:31 when the boat pulled away. And it doesn't tell us how a strong swimmer, on a beach he'd spent all day on, ended up somewhere no one could see him. That night, the phone that finally rang wasn't the sheriff's. It was a friend, calling around 11, to tell Nolan's mother her son was still out there. And then 2 days went by before anyone found him. For 2 days, the water kept him. What follows the phone call that night is the part every family dreads. A search. Not one boat, not one agency, but several working the same stretch of coast. The Coast Guard. The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources. The National Park Service, which manages the island itself. When someone goes missing off a barrier island, the search area isn't a room you can seal and comb. It's open water, moving constantly, and every hour widens the space where a person could be. It ended on the morning of July 6th. A National Park Service ranger found Nolan off the northwestern shoreline, not far in the end from where the group had spent the day. The next day, the sheriff spoke. John Ledbetter told the public investigators saw no indication of a crime and that Nolan's friends were cooperating. Around the same time, the county coroner noted no immediate visible signs of trauma. Here it's worth being fair, because there is an ordinary explanation, and it's the most likely one. People who know Horn Island will tell you the water there isn't to be trusted. Currents shift, conditions that look calm can turn in minutes. Strong swimmers have been caught out by places exactly like this. Nothing about that shoreline requires a villain. Sometimes the water is simply the water, and it doesn't ask whether you can swim. But notice the order of events, because the order is the problem. The sheriff said no crime, and the coroner noted no obvious trauma, before the state medical examiner had performed the autopsy. That exam happened on July 7th, after the public reassurance, not before it. The conclusion arrived first. The examination came second, and that exact sequence, an answer offered before the evidence was in, had happened somewhere else, only months before. 500 miles west, in Texas, another family had already lived the beginning of this story.
Justice for Daniel Erving. Justice for Daniel Erving.
The date was April 13th. The place was Lake Ray Hubbard, a wide reservoir on the edge of Rolette, just outside Dallas. 3 teenagers climbed onto a railroad bridge near Miller Road that afternoon, and did what young people have always done at spots like that. Jumped, one after another, into the water below. One of them was Daniel Erving, 18, an honor roll student, a member of his high school swim team, worth holding on to because it means he wasn't unfamiliar with water. To the people who loved him, he wasn't even Daniel, he was Mike. He went off that bridge like the others. Then, according to investigators, he surfaced once. He called out for help. He went under. What happened in the minutes after is what turns a drowning into something else. Because the two teenagers who were there with him did not, according to the arrest affidavit, do what every instinct screams to do. They didn't call for help, didn't flag down a stranger, didn't stay at the water's edge shouting his name until someone came. Instead, the search for Daniel stretched on without the two people who knew exactly where to look. His body wasn't recovered until 4 days later, on April 17th. When the Dallas County Medical Examiner finished the work, the ruling was accidental drowning. And on the narrow question of how Daniel died, that ruling has never been challenged or overturned. He drowned. It was an accident. That could have been the end of it. A tragedy. Closed. A lake, a bad decision, a boy who didn't come up. But it wasn't the end of it. Because 3 months later, both teenagers who'd been on that bridge with him were arrested, and the accidental ruling still stood untouched the entire time. How both of those things could be true at once is where this story turns. On July 9th, the answer arrived, and it wasn't the one the family had been demanding. Police arrested Lucas Roper, 19, one of the two who'd been on that bridge with Daniel. A judge set his bond at $10,000. Arrested alongside him was a juvenile, whose age reporting hasn't settled. Some outlets say 16, others 17. Either way, a teenager. But look closely at what they were charged with. Because this is where people expected one thing and got another. Not murder, not manslaughter, not causing Daniel's death at all. The charge was tampering with physical evidence, a third-degree felony. The affidavit lays out what that means here. After Daniel went under, investigators allege, his clothing was discarded into a tree line. His phone was thrown from a moving vehicle, tossed out at Roper's direction. And Roper himself, according to the affidavit, admitted he deleted his messages with Daniel because he expected an investigation and didn't want them part of it. Here's the timeline worth sitting with. Detectives interviewed Roper on April 20th, days after Daniel's body was recovered. The arrest didn't come until July 9th. Nearly 3 months separate the conversation from the handcuffs. This is the idea the whole case turns on, so I'll say it once, clearly. How a person died and what people did afterward are two separate legal questions, with different standards and different evidence, and they can live side by side in one file without contradicting each other. Daniel's death was ruled an accident, and that ruling stands. The charge against Roper isn't about how Daniel died. It's about what allegedly happened after. The phone, the clothes, the deleted messages. For Daniel's family, that distinction brought no comfort. His mother, Tamika Erving, along with attorneys Ben Crump and Sean DeRadia, called the charge nowhere near enough. Dominique Alexander of the Next Generation Action Network stood with them and said the same. A tampering charge, in their eyes, answered the smallest question while leaving the largest one wide open. In Texas, in the end, the case came down to a phone, and in Mississippi, there wasn't just one phone, there were several. Nolan's phone made it back to the mainland. He didn't, but the phone did, carried home on the boat while its owner stayed behind on the island. It didn't come back to his family right away. When the boat docked, the phone was with people connected to the group, and only later was Nolan's family able to retrieve it. His mother, Christine Wansley, has said that when she and her sister finally looked through it, the recent Snapchat content wasn't there. For a young man who documented his life the way people his age do, constantly, reflexively, a stretch of empty where that day should have been, is the kind of thing a mother notices immediately. But notice what that is and what it isn't. What the family described is what they saw on a screen. And here we have to be careful, because a screen and a forensic examination are two very different things, and the gap between them is the whole ballgame. When you look at a phone yourself, you can see something is missing. What you cannot see is when it went missing, or how, or whose hand did it. A proper forensic extraction can reach those answers. It can surface deletion timestamps, the digital fingerprint of the moment something was removed. It can sometimes recover data thought to be gone. And crucially, it can separate two things that look identical to the naked eye. Content a person deliberately deleted, and content that simply expired on its own, the way Snapchat is built to make messages vanish by design. That distinction isn't academic. Remember Texas. There, the case for tampering had something powerful behind it. A person saying in his own words why he deleted what he deleted. That supplied intent directly. Without an admission like that, intent has to be built the hard way, piece by circumstantial piece. Who had the phone, for how long, and what the data itself can be made to reveal. So far, no completed forensic examination has been made public establishing what was removed from Nolan's phone, when, or by whom. What we know is that one is coming. Attorney Ben Crump has confirmed a joint inspection with the Office of District Attorney Angel Myers McElrath, the family's experts and the state's experts, working the device together. Crump has gone further, calling for the friends' phones to be examined too, not just Nolan's. And Sheriff John Ledbetter has said the FBI is assisting with the digital side of the investigation. That inspection hasn't happened yet. When it does, we'll cover it here first. So if you want to know what that phone gives up, this is the channel to follow. The phones are one open question. The examination of Nolan's own body was another. The family did not trust the answer they were given. So they went looking for a second one, and went a long way to find it. They had their son flown from Mississippi to Washington, D.C., a journey funded in part by former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick, so the examination could be done by someone with no connection to Mississippi law enforcement. The pathologist they turned to was Dr. Roger Mitchell Jr., president of the National Medical Association and former chief medical examiner for the District of Columbia. If you wanted an independent set of eyes, you could hardly ask for a more credentialed pair. Mitchell conducted his examination on July 10th. His report was dated July 19th. The findings were made public on July 22nd at the NOC National Convention in Chicago. The headline conclusion was, in a sense, no conclusion at all. Cause of death, undetermined. Manner of death, undetermined. Pending further investigation. That word, undetermined, is not the same as accident and not the same as homicide. It's a professional refusal to say more than the evidence allows. Mitchell did document one specific finding, on the back of the head. He was careful how he framed it, inconclusive, something that merited further investigation rather than a conclusion in itself. He noted the state's own examination hadn't opened that area, and he was equally clear about what he did not find: no fractures. Here an honest account has to slow down, because the second examination came with real limits, and Mitchell said so himself rather than hiding them. Certain internal structures had been retained by the state examiner during the first autopsy, so they simply weren't available to Mitchell for the second. That sounds ominous until you hear the rest. Mitchell himself noted that retaining those structures is standard, ordinary practice, routine when there are questions worth further testing. Both things are true at once. It was normal procedure, and it still placed a real ceiling on what an independent examination could confirm. There was another limiting factor too, one Mitchell stated plainly and no one could have prevented. The passage of time itself had narrowed what any examination, first or second, could now establish for certain. So two examinations now existed, and neither could truly close, because both were still waiting on the same single test. The test everyone is waiting on is toxicology, and as of today, neither side has released it. Not the state, not the family's independent examiner. To understand why that one missing piece holds up everything else, you have to understand how a drowning is actually determined. It isn't what most people assume. There's no single finding, no one clean marker, that proves a body has drowned. Drowning is what pathologists call a diagnosis of exclusion. You don't reach it by finding proof of drowning, you reach it by ruling everything else out, one alternative at a time, until drowning is what's left standing. And the tool that does most of that ruling out is toxicology. It's the test that tells you what was or wasn't in a person's system. The thing that either closes off other explanations or opens them up. It's also by nature slow. These results routinely take weeks, and there's no rushing the chemistry. The Jackson County coroner, Bruce Lind, has confirmed what that means in practice. The state's report isn't finished, because it can't be until the toxicology is in. One thing should be clear, because in a vacuum this gets twisted. Nobody has suggested drugs played any role in Nolan's death. Not the family, not investigators, not the pathologist. This is a point about procedure and nothing else. About why a conclusion can't responsibly be issued yet, no matter how badly everyone wants one. Even Mitchell has said the proper place to interpret these results, when they arrive, would be before a grand jury. But here's the human problem with a slow test. While the science takes its weeks, the silence doesn't stay empty. People fill it. And into that vacuum came two accounts of the same afternoon that could not both be true. Two people described the same afternoon, and their descriptions don't fit together. On one side are Nolan's friends. Their account, given to investigators, is that Nolan chose to stay behind on the island, that he intended to catch a later ride back with a different group, rather than leave when the boat left. On the other side is a young woman who was on the island that day. She has told the family something different, that Nolan said he was heading back to their boat. Those are not the same story. One has him deciding to stay, the other has him planning to go. Her account, at first, didn't come directly from her. It reached the public secondhand, through relatives who went online to correct rumors spreading faster than anyone could manage. Only later did it come into clearer focus. Some of what's publicly known comes from the friends themselves. Traced in Shep,